Hey everyone, welcome to the third seminar in our light tackle marathon. We're going to have our light tackle event on April 11th. We're going to have a parking lot party with kids, games, and prizes, barbecue by EJ. We're going to have a rod and reel trade-in that benefits combos for kids. And so we really look forward to seeing all you guys at that event. With that being said, let's get right into our third seminar. Today we are talking about light tackle tuna fishing with Captain Brice O'Malley of Rookie Mistakes Fishing. So, Brice, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and a little bit about the light tackle tuna game?
Yeah, sure. Well, I appreciate you guys having me. Again, my name's Brice O'Malley, Captain Brice. You can call me that. I've been running light tackle trips for about 3 years now. I've been in the light tackle game for a long time. My business mostly revolves around light tackle tuna fishing. We also do some drum and some bass mixed in when the seasons change. But essentially, we're all hands-on, all light tackle gear. We don't troll, we just cast. We have a wide range of things to talk about. That's pretty much the business. I mean, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I know a lot of people probably follow you on Instagram, probably have seen on social media all these videos of, catching tuna on top water and doing it on spinning gear. And it just seems like an absolute blast. So I want you to kind of share with everybody today a little bit of insight into that game. And I guess we can start with lures. I see you brought some plugs and some plastics here. You want to talk about sort of what lures you brought here, when you're throwing these lures, and how to work them a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So I think the biggest thing with this game is not really overthinking it. A lot of guys come into it with, do I have the right gear? Do I have the right rod, reel, lures, hooks, etc. And you can kind of go down a rabbit hole, especially when you're dealing with the bigger fish. It kind of changes. We have kind of three classes we like to target. We have an underclass, which is a fish between 27 to like 50 inches. We have like a mid-range class, which is like the Goldilocks, the sweet spot. That's going to be a fish between like 50 to 73 inches. And then we have giants, which is a whole other class of fish in itself. Those are fish from 73 up to 100 inches, over 1,000 pounds. They get huge. So what I brought with me today is what most of you guys will experience, especially if you fish out of Maryland, here in Ocean City during the winter, New Jersey, down the coast of the Carolinas. Most of the time we have, those mid-range size fish, and that really opens up a wide range of tools that you can use to kind of help yourself. So some of the most easy and probably things that you've used the most are going to be like an NLBN. A paddle tail of any kind works. A straight tail works great too. Biggest thing you want to look for when you're purchasing these are tuna hooks. It'll say like 4X strong, or it'll just straight up say tuna hook. That's really important. These fish have a massively strong mouth and it's very hard, so when you're setting the hook into that fish, you really want to make sure you have something that's not going to bend out. As far as the weight sizes go, it really doesn't matter. I have kind of a wide mix, but pretty much everything I throw is 2 ounces and up. Ounce and a half if you get a calm day and they're up top higher, but for the most part it's going to be that 3 to 4 ounce class. That's kind of our number one most thrown bait. Like if you guys come on a trip with me or you go with anybody, most of the time these are tied on. They're the most user friendly. Another thing we use a lot of are these stick baits. There's a couple different types. We have like a sinking stick bait like this. This is a siren lure. This is kind of a more expensive option, but Shimano and some other brands make some cheaper versions that you can get into. These are great when there's bunker around or any type of bigger bait fish. The presentation's kind of the same. As far as the motion goes with jigging, it really all depends. Obviously poppers are another game, but these three baits I kind of like to work the same. Get yourself a nice wide cast out. You're gonna wait for that fish. They're coming real fast, so you want to let it sink probably like 5 or 6 seconds. And then it's just a long sweeping motion. So you do a sweep, you pause it, reel your slack in, and a sweep, and that's going to give that lure the most action. And that kind of works between all of these. It's really scenario based. So like what we mostly have at Ocean City and what I mostly do for the charters, we'll use the paddle tails. They're a lot of times dialed in on bunker, and so that kind of matches a bunker perfectly. They get a little camera shy to poppers. They're not always on them. That's a really sweet treat if you can get them to eat a popper, but for the most part, they call them ghost tuna. They're pretty difficult to catch, and you might cast 200, 300, 400 times in a day before you finally get a bite. So we try to use the stuff that's the easiest for everybody. That's really the breakdown on lures.
Cool. Yeah, that's definitely really helpful. And like you said, I think a lot of people think of, tuna fishing as really just like complicated and inaccessible. But yeah, I mean, it's just sort of like an upscale version of what we throw here in the bay for, like you said, rockfish, drum, things like that. Now, do you want to talk us through your setup a little bit?
Sure.
I know you brought this rod and reel here. I know you've got some line and leader there. Do you want to talk us through sort of what your setup is when you're going to target them?
Yeah, so there's like I said, there's levels to the fish. There's also levels to the tackle you use. You can ball out and buy Stellas and custom rods, and that's great. And some guys do that. And I think if you have the money for it and you're really interested in it after doing a trip or two, definitely spend the money. Cry once is the saying. But for most average guys, and especially on the charter use, we use this stuff every day. We need it to last. God forbid we break a rod, somebody lets go of a rod and reel combo and it goes in the water. It's a lot easier to replace something like this, which is just a Jigging World rod, and it's got a Shimano Saragossa on the bottom. It's a very simple setup. This might run you like $400, $500, $600 depending on where you get it. All of the line that we use is Varivas on my boat. They're a really good brand of line. They use a PE grading system. So this would be PE8. PE8's equivalent to about a 100-pound test in a Power Pro. The benefit of using a PE system line from Japan is that the diameter is a lot thinner, so you can fit a lot more line on the spool. And when we're dealing with these fish, line capacity is massive. It's one of the most important things, especially with the bigger ones. So pretty much everything we use is going to be a Varivas product online. You can also use some of the newer Berkeley stuff, even some of the new Power Pro stuff they make is a lot better, and they're catching up to kind of the Japan technology. As far as leader goes, again, I stick with one brand. I like to just streamline it. So for me, it's Varivas braid and it's Varivas fluorocarbon. You can use a whole wide range of brands if you like Seagar, if you like the Daiwa stuff. There's a bunch of brands. It's really whatever you're comfortable with is going to be the best. You're looking for something that has a lot of shock resistance. When you first set that hook on a fish, I tell my clients all the time, I want you to try to break the rod. So I want you to put all of your body weight into the rod, and I want you to be yanking on it like you're trying to break it. And the importance of that, like I was saying earlier, is with these guys here, you really want to get that hook in its mouth tight. When that fish comes up and hits it, it's usually moving at 30, 40, 50 miles an hour sometimes, and all that's holding that lure in its mouth is the clamping power of its face. So when that fish turns after the first run, a lot of times they'll open their mouth, and when they do that, the lure just pops right out. So it's really important to get that good hook set on the initial bite, and so that's why we like to use fluorocarbon. Obviously, it's a little bit thinner in diameter, but it's got less stretch than mono does, and so it allows that hook set to be a little bit tighter. Obviously, you can't tie straight to braid. It'll just chafe you off right away. They do have teeth.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And so you talked about this rod and reel a little bit here. What sort of size are you looking for in the rod and the reel? So like what type of ratings should people look for when they look at a rod or when they look at a reel, whether that be, lure rating, line rating, drag poundage in the reel, gear ratio, anything like that?
Yes, that's a great question. It really depends on what you're trying to target. So like I said, in our area of the world, at least in the Northeast here, we mostly have mid-sized tunas, that 50 to 70 inch class. And typically you're going to want to start with anything between a 10,000 size reel. We use upwards of 30,000 size reels, but for the most part, I wouldn't have anything under a 10,000. This specifically is a 14,000 Saragossa. I believe it's the XG or XD gear ratio, which allows you to get a little more line on the retrieval. That's important when you're throwing things like stick baits or plastic or plugs. You want to get a little more retrieve. Besides that's pretty much what we look for in the reel. Like I tell my clients, if you want to bring your own gear, that's great. I encourage it. Just make sure it's bigger than a 10,000 because just the drag ratios in the smaller reels, they can't hold up to these fish. As far as the rods go, that really is personal preference, but I will say like a good starting point is look for a rod rated for that PE 6 plus size. So this is probably going to be like a PE 6 to 8 rod. the Jigging World Ghost Hunter, or Blackwood, I'm sorry, which I believe you guys do sell here.
We do, yeah.
This would be a great starting setup to see if you really want to get into it without breaking the bank. These rods work great. We use them a lot for yellowfin, smaller, mid-sized bluefin. They work great. They're a lot of fun, good action in the tip, which is great for popping and stick baits. That's usually where I'll start. If you want to target a bigger class fish like those 70 to 100 inch Neiman's, then you're going to want to really start looking into the custom rods. Those fish are just such a different class compared to what we have, that it's kind of a whole different fishery, if you will. But for pretty much all your day-to-day use, this right here, like a 14,000, 10,000, Saragosas are great, Twin Powers are great. I believe Daiwa makes a BG MQ now, which is a fantastic budget buy. A couple other in that range if you want to stick with the budget side of things, but the world's your oyster. I mean, you can really spend as much as you want on this stuff, and I think anything over a Gosa is perfectly fine for what we do.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then, so we've learned a lot, obviously, now about sort of like the tackle side of things. I would venture to ask you, is the hardest part of this finding the fish?
Yes, that is a commonly asked question on a lot of the trips. It depends. So like there's different scenarios in the ocean. I think there are a lot of similarities between striped bass or drum fishing when you're hunting versus the tuna. Obviously, your number one indicator is if you see fish airing out, you can't mistake a tuna. That's a tuna. But typically what we're looking for are small groupings of birds. We could have small terns, bigger seagulls, even pelicans sometimes of the year. That's a great indicator. You can also smell them. So like a lot of guys will tell you when they're drum fishing and you're looking for drum, you'll smell like a watermelon smell. With tuna, it's a little bit different. It just smells really fishy. You'll see slicked out areas as you're running out, big circle slick of what appears to be bait fish, and it usually is, and that's a good indicator. Okay, these fish were here at one point. They're going to be somewhere in the area. So you really got those two things going for you, the bird shows. Obviously, you can mark them. We don't really use side scan and live scope like guys do in the bay. It's just not good enough yet. But in shallower water, it's say 100 feet or less, you can use side scan, and it is pretty productive to be able to find them. But for the most part, like we'll use a high wide traditional chirp deucer, and that'll be good enough to see what we need to see. That's really the biggest indicators. Obviously, you can look at temperature breaks. That's kind of more important in the winter months of the year. We look for like 50-degree plus water. If it's less than that, I'm not going to say there aren't going to be fish in there, but your better odds are going to be that 50-plus degree water. Or like we've been fishing in the Outer Banks a lot recently, you're looking for temp breaks. So something where it's a 5 to 10 to 15-degree temperature break within a mile or two, there's a good chance bait will congregate there, and where bait is, there's going to be predators. So that kind of is what we're looking for. But really, it is a run and gun game. I mean, we'll run anywhere between 150 to 200 miles a trip on average to find fish, and sometimes more. Some days you run in a straight line and you find them right away. Some days, you run all the way down from Maryland to Virginia or up to almost Delaware, New Jersey, and eventually you find something. But it is a game of running around. It's really hard to go out there and try to do it with not a lot of knowledge of it, but I do encourage you, if you do go, you're welcome to reach out to me. I always like to help people. Obviously, Anglers has a good report system as well, which is good information to have. It's a great starting point to kind of figure out where you go. So. For
sure. And yeah, on that note, just last thing here, you want to tell the people where they can find you on social media, how they can reach you, and maybe,
Sure.
if they wanted to take a trip with you?
Yeah. So if you guys want to book a trip and give it a shot with me, learn some things, I can go through everything in a lot more detail in person, but my social media handles are Rookie Mistakes Fishing. It's just all together one word. You can follow me on Instagram, Facebook. I think we're going to start a YouTube soon, so we'll see about that. But for right now, those are the major ways. You can also contact me via text or phone number. It's just 443-924-7314, and my name's Captain Brice O'Malley.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming in,
Yeah,
Brice.
appreciate you having me.
Look forward to doing some more with you in the future, and hopefully we'll catch some tuna together sometime.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, man.
Cool.